Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Fire Time Power Hour. Grant, how you doing, man? Good to see you.
I'm doing really good, Tim. How you doing?
I'm good. I noticed that you are in the mobile office today, and it looks like you've got a tool bag of golf clubs behind you.
You can see that. I didn't know that. Yeah. So I'm lucky enough to have a tea time today, but this is a priority, and so I'm doing it from the parking lot.
Cool. I love it. I love it, man. So good to see you again. And it's funny, for those of you who are watching, Grant, we've been traveling quite a bit lately. We were on the East Coast actually twice on two different trips in the last 3 weeks, spending some time in the New England area with the folks at Northeast Distribution for their show, and then also going out to Compact. And I feel like, gosh, there has been just so much ground covered. Like we've had the workshop as well since we had the last Power Hour. So there's been a lot that's happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing adventure it was, especially this last week, but it was a blast to hang out with you and get that time with you, and it was awesome to see all the dealers and talk to dealers and try to solve the problems we're all dealing with and all trying to work on together. So it was awesome.
Yeah, 100%. Well, so as we get started here, like we do for every Power Hour, just kind of laying out why we're here and what the purpose is. Really, we have felt like for too long in our industry, there's been a tight-fisted mentality where people don't help each other. Manufacturers and dealers can be very tight-fisted, right? I can't share my secrets. What are people trying to take from me? It's me against everyone, win-lose situations. And we've just felt really disenfranchised by that. And we feel like, man, that's not the way to grow. It's not the way to get better. And we think that true power comes from actually pouring ourselves out from other people. And so, in these power hours, the goal is to take 60 minutes and really lay out everything that we have. And so throughout this, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments and we'll make sure to address them and get them answered. Today, Grant, I think that, man, this is a topic that we've been discussing quite a bit over the last
Tons.
few weeks. Yeah. And it's like, how do we design the perfect showroom to sell in? I think we just come right out swinging. I guess, what is your take on like the average retailer showroom?
I mean, Tim, you know this, and we talk about this all the time, but there's really no direction or purpose in what they're selling. And they use, people that are not in their business as guides, and they end up having just too much product on the showroom. And that's
Yeah.
not bad. Like a lot of product on the showroom is not bad. Like we have a lot of product on our showroom. I admit that, but it has to be intentional. Why do you have the product on your showroom? What purpose is it serving? How is it helping with the sales flow of your sales team from start to finish? Is it encouraging it, or is it
Yeah.
actually, putting all these pain points in it? The showroom is an important tool, and it has to be really. You have to sharpen that tool, and so what we see is just a lot of unintentional products scattered through the showroom, and that we're close in a lot of cases, but just a few more tweaks, and I think a lot of them can get there. But yeah, just too much product and a little bit of a lack of intentionality is what I see most, Tim.
Yeah, and I think that, for anyone who's watching this in the comments, give us a yes or a no or a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Have you ever had a situation where you've had products on your floor that you don't really sell that much of them? You're not quite sure why they're there, but you just feel this burden. Why I spent so much money on this. I can't take it off the floor. Or maybe as a sales rep, do you have customers that you sell to that a lot of their showroom is set up with units that don't get a lot of turns, that don't move the needle, but those retailers, just have not taken a hard look at removing that stuff. Let us know in the comments on that. Now we've got a giveaway, Grant, and I'm going to talk about this first as we jump into it. So what we're giving away, this actually comes straight from the Fire Time workshop. And we are going to give this resource away to the first person that can tell us how many units they have on display and why they need a simpler way to organize them. You can just throw that up in the comments. First person to tell us how many units are on display and why you need a simpler way to organize them. So I'll hold this up to the camera. Grant, this is a resource we gave away during the Fire Time workshop. It's a tear sheet, 8.5 by 11. There's probably, I don't know, 50 of these on it. And it is a daily retail workflow. So I would imagine for most of the people watching this, as an owner or a manager, you're probably really good at what you do and your life is always busy. But how often is it that you want your team members to be able to do what you do? A lot of the time people don't work as hard or they're not as effective because they simply don't know what to do. This changes that.
Yep.
This is a daily retail workflow. Literally, you keep this out on the desk, and every day, anyone who's working the sales floor, rip the first one off, fill it out, and there's their day. And I'm going to go through some things on this, Grant. So like, it's got a section for your name, the date, the day of the week. We've got our tasks for the day broken up into 2 categories. I've got 3 critical tasks, and I've got all my other tasks. So at the beginning of the day, just write down, like, what are the 3 major things I got to do that if I get nothing else done, what are those 3 critical tasks? And then throughout the day, everything else can go on the other task list. We've got sections for follow-ups. We have sections for writing new estimates. How do I manage my inbox? It even goes through how to prep the store to open. There's boxes you can check for, yes, I cleaned the bathroom. Yes, I stocked the brochures. Yes, I dusted the displays. And seriously, if you get this resource, if you're the one that wins it, go put it on the front counter and just tell your team every day, rip one off, keep it with you the entire day, add tasks to it, cross things off, use it as a guide. And at the end of the day, leave it on my desk. And I'm telling you, this is a system of management that will, I mean, it'll give your team direction. And I think it can really transform the way that they work.
Yeah, I mean, you win the day in the morning, and stand-up meetings, I believe are a big part of that. But this gives intentionality to the sales role, and it also allows the managers to hold them accountable. And we talk about
Yep.
this all the time, Tim. Employees want to be held accountable, and why they want to be held accountable is they burn those and they want to celebrate their wins. And this gives you the expectations that they can meet, and then it gives you the ability to tell them they're doing a great job or work with them on something they're not doing that well. And back to the morning and make or break, the intentionality this puts it. What do we all struggle with? Focus. And this is just refocusing ourselves every single day.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so I think I mean, maybe we'll give away 2. So I'm going to call the first 2 people that want to list that out. I will mail these. I'll mail you one of these. And seriously, this is a resource. If you have a tough time managing your team, this changes that. So now there's accountability, there's direction, and they know what to do. So, okay, Grant, as we jump into this, I want to talk about the showroom. And looks like Jared's here. What's up, Jared? We actually just saw him out at Compact in New Brunswick, Canada. So that's awesome. The first thing that I want to jump into with the showroom is the idea of intentionality. And I'll tell a story. So I've worked in 3 main different showrooms in my career, and I managed multiple showrooms for a while, but I didn't actively work as a salesperson in them. There's 3 showrooms I actively worked in as a salesperson. And I'll tell you that, the very first time it hit me was I was working for a retailer, and we had a lot of product on display. We sold a lot of different brands. And what happened is, because we showed and displayed everything, it was like we showed and displayed nothing. And it was a mentality where it's like, well, we got to take on this line to block our competitors from it. If they're coming in to talk to us, we got to make sure that we're the ones that get that product line, because otherwise the competitors are going to get it and they're going to sell against us. But that actually really hurt us. What I noticed when I started taking over my own showroom about 10 years ago, the first thing that we did is we had a whole bunch of wood stoves all over the place. We simplified our wood stove line, and we put our stoves into pods. And the pods were steel stoves, cast iron stoves, and soapstone stoves. We didn't sell Quadrifire and Kuma and Enviro. We sold steel stoves, cast iron stoves, and soapstone stoves. And there was a story. And Hearthstone, to their credit, did a great job of lining out this story. That a Hearthstone stove was like a crock pot. It took a long time to heat up, but man, it held on to that heat for a long, 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 long time, never getting too hot and just holding it for hours and hours and hours after your fire goes out. Our steel stoves were the opposite of that. They heated up super hot, super quick. Like, you're home and you're cold, don't light a fire on a soapstone stove. You're waiting for 2 hours, right? A steel stove is gonna get that room up to temperature super fast. Cast iron is a great middle ground where it's not going to get quite as hot as a steel stove, but it is going to hold on to some of that radiant heat afterwards. That story of we sell 3 kinds of stoves was really powerful for me, and it made it easy for people to buy from us, and it made it easy to train team members because they didn't have to learn 5 different brands and 13 different models. They had to learn 3 stories. And even though that system, you could probably poke some holes in the way that we did that, the simplicity of that system was a huge building block for me in the simplicity of the showroom.
Well, Tim, I absolutely love hearing that. And just add to that on your wood stove story, ours is very similar, and we have Blaze King as our best option in the good, better, best. It all comes down to the consumer. So who are your consumers? And as you sell to people, you actually start to see that there's only maybe 2 or 3 types of customers that are shopping with you, and you need to sell from the outside in versus the inside out, like you always say. And with consumers, they come in and they have something in their main living room that they want to see the fire. They want quick fires because it's evening fires, maybe weekend fires. They don't plan on using it all the time. And that's the
Yep.
customer for a steel secondary combustion stove. Now, if they
Yep.
tell you they want heat for an extended period of time, they want to use this as a workhorse, for us, then we go Blaze King because it's less wood, longer time, more even temperature. You really have to think about your product for your customer, not to block a competitor, not for your sales rep or manufacturer, for your customer. And every dealer in the country, all over, we all have different customers. Now, we know our customers, but we just don't buy our product and display it for them. And that's what I'm excited to talk about the rest of this 45 minutes that we have left.
So good. Okay, so first off, we have a giveaway winner, Diana McMasters out of Vintage Stove in Nova Scotia. We were just hanging out with Matt last week, and it's great to talk to you, Diane. You win 58 displays and customers like to see units. I love that. And Diane, if you want to shoot me an email with your address, I'm going to mail you out one of these, and we'll give away one more if there's somebody else that wants to shout out how many units they have and why having a system to organize them is incredibly important. So you can shoot me an email at my email's tim@itsfiretime.com, and I'll make sure to get that for you. Okay, so Cindy says that she likes the crockpot analogy. Yeah, Cindy, so we're going to be going a lot of different directions, but when it comes to the showroom, a showroom is all about building a bridge. We're always trying to build a bridge between us and a customer. So if someone asks me, hey, Tim, how much heat is 65,000 BTUs? I need to answer that question with a story or with a word picture. I need to find some common ground, a bridge between the customer's understanding and what 65,000 BTUs is. And that crockpot analogy is something, it builds a bridge, right? So, saying, hey, a soapstone stove, it's like a crockpot. Takes a while to heat up. It doesn't get super, super hot, but man, it holds that heat for a long time. It is even, and it lasts forever and ever and ever. A steel stove, it's like a stovetop. I've got little kids. I make them macaroni and cheese. And when I turn on that stovetop, it boils that water super quick. It gets up to temperature really, really fast. But then when I turn it down, it also cools down real quick. Now, which one of those stories is right for your customer? It depends, right? Like you said, Grant, if they're a customer, they want an evening fire when they come home. They want to see a huge view of that flame. Well, that's a steel stove secondary combustion customer. But if someone's like, we're a one match winter where we light the match in August and it goes out in June, well, that very well could be a different customer. But in every way possible, finding a way to speak in pictures will really, really help you. And that's actually going to play into some ideas for the showroom.
And it really
Um,
goes to
yeah.
that you're a guide as a salesperson, and your goal is to get that customer from one spot to another spot in the whole sales journey. Being the guide allows you to do that.
Yeah. So for those folks who are watching from Atlantic Canada, this is going to be familiar to what we talked about last week, but we'll take a deeper dive and be able to answer some specific questions for your businesses. But I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make as retailers is we just put things on the showroom floor without purpose. And our belief is that every product needs to have a reason for being on the floor. So if a manufacturer comes out with a new model and we display it because it's the new zero clearance wood burning model, I don't believe that's a good reason to show it. Just because it's the new model does not mean that there's a reason to show it. And the reason is, it's not like buying a car where every year around Christmas time you go to the lot because you want to see the new year's models. We don't sell products that are like that. It's much different than that. And our showrooms are already so complicated with products, and almost everything is a black box that all looks the same. Adding another black box confuses a customer rather than helps them. And so I think that, I do believe if a manufacturer's new model is going to help you, solve problems for your customer and make sales, by all means show that product, but don't just put it on the floor to put it on the floor, because if you add too many things, it will distract rather than help the customer.
Yeah, Tim, all that I'm you're spot on. So the thing that I'm thinking from a retailer standpoint is, where do you start? Like, so many people that are listening, so many people that are taking this information
Yeah.
in are sitting like, what do we do? So with that information, where would you suggest? And I'd like to add some comment, but where do they start? What do you do?
Yeah. Well, I think so, like what Kyle just said here, like that displayed products have to have relevance. That's so true. And I think that I I would back up as a retailer and I would pick your top category of sales.
That's
Wood
exactly right.
stoves,
Yep.
pellet
Yep.
inserts, gas inserts, right? So like, in the Maritimes, it very well may be wood stoves. We're here in Portland, Oregon, where I live, it's gas inserts. So pick your top
Yep.
category. And then you have to figure out your product categories and your stories. So Grant, you were the one that turned me on to a good, better, best model, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. And I've just tried to take that and run with it. That when I go to Home Depot to buy a paintbrush, Home Depot has arranged the paintbrushes based on good, better, best. That gives me some kind of context to understand what the differences between these. And I would look at your product lines that way. So maybe you've got 3 lines of wood stoves, 3 lines of gas inserts. If you had a gun to your head, what's the good, better, best? Like we can all come up with that pretty quickly. Maybe you've got 1 line of wood stoves. And I actually prefer that because now I can go series by series by series, where maybe if I've got a line of wood stoves that has cast iron and steel, one of those series is good and the other one is better. I think that's where you have to start. And we'll kind of expand on this in a little bit, but by breaking things into categories, all of a sudden, things that shouldn't be there stick out like a sore thumb. So like, Grant, maybe could you talk about your good, better, best with gas inserts, and then we can pick up.
Yeah. So I mean, realistically, Tim, when you're putting together a good, better, best, you have to think with like the end price in mind first. So when you're building good, better, best, it has to follow a flow of pricing. Your good option has to be the least expensive price. Your better options have to have a medium price. And then your best options have to be the most expensive product that you sell, or maybe you can have a fourth with luxury. The reason you do that is not because they're good, better, or best. It's because you're finding what your customer's looking for. So when I think about my gas inserts, I have my entry level loss leader good option as a Chaska 29 millivolt system. Very simple, my best price with the remote on off, works when the power goes out, and is a budget conscious gas insert. Then you get into my better option, and I kind of divided up my better option in 2 different types of customers. One is the old reliable customer that wants the thing that's been around forever, that's easy to service, less likely to break down, high heat function, all those things. And that's my Enviro E series. Simple, high heat, easy to take care of, been around forever. And that's a certain customer in the better option in that medium price range category. Then I have a Cozy Heat in a similar price point with kind of all the bells and whistles. But most importantly, its thermostat is a little bit different in that it has a smart mode where it'll modulate its flame up and down, as most people know. And so it's a different type of customer. And so we have 2 categories. And then you can graduate up into our EX Enviro series, which kind of takes the 2 better options pushes them together and says, if you want all best of both worlds, this is the option that's best for you. But what's magic about it, Tim, is it kind of covers all your customers' thoughts. You really get a good idea, an understanding of what they're looking at by body language, and it gives you a starting and a stopping point to the
Yep.
information so that they can engage, ask questions, and gives you an opportunity to ask money at the end of it as well.
Yeah, it's so good. So by breaking into categories like this, so like in my old showroom, we had two different lines of gas inserts. We broke them into good, better, best, and modern. We didn't do that much modern. So rather than confuse things by saying, oh, this model comes traditionally, we just made it a separate category. And what we did is one of our product lines offered three types of gas inserts. We sold two. Even though we could sell three, we didn't, because to have their third confused things. And everybody made more money when we only sold two, even though they didn't like it. But it was the better move. What we did, they had three
Yeah.
lines of inserts. They already had a natural good, better, best. We took their two higher end inserts and made that our good and better. Then we had like a super premium line that we made best. And we had a simple sales message for everyone. And why would I buy the entry level good fireplace? They were cost effective and they came with a few basic options. Why would I buy the middle level? It was comfortable heat that warms you up like a blanket. And why would I buy the highest end best? It was a premium look with the most design flexibility. That was it. I mean, literally, this has been 5 years and I've got those committed to memory because every day I stared at the signage
So
that had
good.
them on it. But it's like you're talking like the accountant could be out there working with someone and they would point at this and go, why would I buy it? Oh, it's these are our most cost effective and they come with a few basic options. Perfect. Like that's great. Why would I buy this one? Oh, that's our premium look. It's got the most design flexibility. Really simple messages to train to. And by doing this, you all of a sudden start to see where redundancies are. So like in your case, Grant, and we'll talk about brand names because we just will. But like, in your case, the decision you made where you've got Cozy Heat and Enviro as your better, you have decided to be very intentional with which products you offer. So in Enviro's E series, you don't sell the IPI version
I do
because
not.
you sell Standing Pilot. That's the story. That's the customer.
Exactly.
So if we're going to go
Yep.
to better, we've got our better option for the Standing Pilot Light Old Faithful customer. Even though the unit comes IPI, you don't sell it because if you
Nope.
sold it, you'd have to displace Cozy Heat because it overlaps too much with the Chaska series that's IPI, comes to the remote. To show the Enviro E series IPI and the Cozy Heat Chaska series, it actually hurts the sale because it distracts and confuses the customer.
100%. And you have to take, sometimes we buy through distribution, which I do. Sometimes you buy direct from the manufacturer, and pricing is different. And that's why when you do good, better, best, you have to start with price first. So if
Yeah.
you go from my E series to millivolt to my E series IPI, it's $1,000 upgrade. Okay, well, I have a Chaska that's in a similar price range, maybe a few $100s more than the Enviro Standing Pilot, and it's positioned perfectly to be that story. I don't want it to be $1,000 more. I want it to be $200 more. So it makes sense for my showroom. One thing that my dad taught me, and we've always been, it's our showroom tells the story. Manufacturers, I will, and manufacturers that have had faith in this have been rewarded for it, but only take on gas inserts. I mean, even with Cozy Heat, one of my biggest product lines, I don't sell their best gas insert still. And it's because it doesn't really fit quite yet into what we're doing. It may eventually. So.
Yeah, it's so true that we have to make sure, and again, start with your best category. So start with whatever you do the most of. If it's wood stoves and you sell, whatever brands you sell, just figure out, okay, good, better, best. And again, this is based on price only. And again, what we would say is best based on price, that may not be best for the entry level customer, right? The best model for the
Exactly.
entry level customer is that good model. So like good, better, best doesn't have anything to do with like the quality or the performance. It just is simply how expensive are these things, because that's the language that a consumer understands. I was actually talking yesterday, Grant, with a dealer on the East Coast that I was working with, and I was helping them with a good, better, best model, and they use signage in their showroom. And the president of one of the major manufacturers walked into their showroom last week, and couldn't believe that their product was only marked as good. And I was like, that totally misses the point,
Yeah.
because if you're on the board and there's a sales system and a story to sell your product, dude, you'll run circles around a showroom. It's just about having your product as part of the mix. It was just pretty
And if a
funny.
manufacturer wants to get in a showroom that thinks that way, the manufacturer has to ask enough questions to understand why that retailer purchases and displays the things that they do. What I find so often is that there's representation that's trying to sell to me that understands nothing about why I display things, why I sell things, or the customers that I sell them to. And until they understand that, I'm going to
Yeah.
dictate what's going on in my showroom.
Yeah, I love that. So Cindy's got a great question here. So she says, she's found when we go too thin in the showroom, people think that we're only pushing what we sell. It's taken some time to find a happy medium. We have around 40 models at the moment. It's a great point. And I think that we need to be careful that there is a balancing act. A showroom can be too thin. You need to have enough product to look like you're in the business, and you need to have enough product to allow customers to shop in your showroom. The thing I would say, very often we as fireplace nerds think customers want choice. So they want to choose between the cast iron wood stove and the steel wood stove and the soapstone wood stove and the other brand of cast iron wood stoves. And I would say they don't. The customer wants to choose between the small size and the large size, or the nickel door and the gold door. When it comes to gas fireplaces, I think that most showrooms have way too many on display. And it's because customers do not need to choose between 4 different models of zero clearance fireplaces. If you've got a zero clearance fireplace that frames at 42 inches, as a 36-inch viewing area, and you have 4 different manufacturers that make them, that's way too many, unless each of those models solves a different problem and is in a different pricing category than the other one. The choice that a consumer wants is, oh, let me choose between 3 different log sets. Let me choose between a couple different decorative fronts. That's the choice that a consumer's looking for. We as fireplace people think inside out. I see the ProFlame burner versus the Dexon valve versus the Invisimesh screen. Consumer doesn't see any of that. Customers always think outside in. And when they think outside in and they understand their space is only so big, if you tell them this is the model that's going to fit your space, and maybe you give them one other one, that's all they need, because there's enough variety within the model itself to choose from. I really, really believe that. But to your point, Cindy, not knowing how big your showroom is, I think that 40 is great. Some of my past showrooms, had as few as probably 25 and maybe as many as 100, depending on the size of the showroom. So I think that that's 40 is
I think
great.
it just
I
comes
need to see
back to
some more. Yeah.
intentionality. What are your customers wanting, and what does your story dictate? As long as you're intentional about your showroom and you have purpose and the reasons that you're displaying those things, and it fits within that good, better, best story, the number is a little bit, it's not as important. It's about the
Yeah,
intentionality and putting that story together for your customer and sales staff.
totally. So Diane's got an amazing question. Do you suggest visible pricing on your good, better, best options? And I'm going to do this. We'll answer it in a second. But for anybody watching this, just give us a yes or a no to the answer to this question in the comments. Do you think that there should be visible pricing on your good, better, best options? Give us a yes or a no. We're going to change the subject and talk about something else for a bit. We're going to come back here.
How?
Well, okay. So here's what I want to talk
No,
about,
I'm
Grant, is
just joking.
while, while we're waiting for people to weigh in on it, I think that I would make a physical grid, like, put together an Excel spreadsheet with a grid that talks about what is your good product, what is your better, what is your best, and then just look at the differences between them. So, like, what is the one sentence message of good? What is the one sentence message of better? What's the one sentence message of best? And then even look at the different decorative options, like how many brick interiors come with the good? How many come with the better? How many come with the best? I'm talking about like a gas insert. Um, it that probably is going to reflect the good, better, best. In general, as you get more expensive, usually you get more decorative options. Usually you get more fronts. And then also think about what's the average price range for these. As you do those things, you'll really start to see what should be on the floor, and just making that grid. Now you're starting to create a sales system where your team has a consistent message, about the same products, and you can start to tell that story over and over again. Okay, so we got some comments here. Back to Diane's question. Do we suggest visible pricing on the good, better, best options? I think that there's a definitive answer to this question. And Grant, what's that answer?
We believe in displaying pricing in the showroom.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it really
100%.
comes down to it comes down to the consumer. And so often in our industry, we're thinking about what's easiest for us, and we're not thinking about the consumer. And so when the consumer's coming in, they're really coming in for a couple different things, two, maybe three. And the first thing is for you to find a product that solves their problem. Like they have a problem and they want you to solve it. So it's up to you to investigate, find out questions, understand their problem, and get them a product that solves that problem. But you guys, they are wanting price, and the pricing, you have to be very proactive out your door. Right now, there's so much demand that we can kind of do whatever. But you guys, there's not going to be that. There's range and they want to know the price. 10 grand, 10 grand with full.
Grant, you're I don't know if you're in, it might have glitched out for a second, but to pick up where you left off, yeah, I mean, I would say we believe 100% pricing must be shown. And there's pushback to this, and the pushback makes sense. We sell complex products. There's no question. Pricing varies so much between vent pipe, between installation. I totally get it, but it doesn't change the fact that we have to show it. And this is the simple reason why. The reason that people are coming into your store is to buy something. And I kind of ask this question hyperbolically whenever I teach this, is like, if a customer is coming into our store to buy something, wouldn't it make sense that we let them know what it cost? I mean, if we went to a car lot and there was no pricing on any of the cars, what would you do, Grant? Like, you're not sticking around. If there's no pricing on any, yeah.
I'm feeling awkward. I'm feeling a little bit weird as a consumer. Like if I'm in that scenario and there's no pricing, I'm wondering what's being hidden from me. Is the price the same today as it is tomorrow? I'm wondering, is it for the same price for me as it is for the next person that walks in? I mean, I'm as a buyer, I mean, I truly believe consumers, people that are shopping, they want to be taken out of the market as soon as possible. And by establishing a guideline of price, and like you say, Tim, if you solve their problem with the product in their showroom and you give them a price that they say then to come out to your home, I mean, in essence, they're saying, I want to do business with you. But if you do not have the price qualifier, how often do we get out there and we miss the mark there? It's a longer delay in getting a yes answer a lot of time too, if we haven't established a price up front.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I want to emphasize ballpark. I can't remember. I don't know exactly when I glitched out, but you guys, we can set up systems in our showroom to give ballpark pricing for installation products. We've been doing it long enough that we can get really close. And as long as you build expectations, I'm getting certain information that is concluding me to give you this information. We go out to do a site inspection to make sure the information you gave me and the information I gave you is accurate. But why we do site inspections, because sometimes it's a little bit off. We're going to adjust that for you and make sure it's right in there. And that's why you go with the range. A consumer expects a price before they leave your showroom.
100%. It'll shorten your sales cycle. You'll sell more jobs. You'll outsell your competitors. All that stuff is true. And the reason is that if you wait to give a customer a price, and I used to do this because I was scared. Honestly, I did it because I was afraid. But if you wait to give a customer a price until you come to the house, the worst case is that you get out there wasting your time because there was a misunderstanding of what the job was actually going to cost. But let's just pretend that you go out there and you're not wasting your time, right? They're interested in a fireplace. You measure it up. If you give them a price right then, they are not ready to make a move because they have not had any time to think about it, to digest it. So you're going to leave the house. They're going to think about it, and you will never know what they do. Unless, I mean, if they decide to buy, you'll get it. But like, you have no chance if someone else comes in with another bid. You have no way to know what they're going to do until they do it. If you give a price in the showroom, and we'll talk about this, like with your signage, not, we believe in actually writing up an estimate for every customer every time before they leave the showroom. By setting that expectation ahead of time, they've now had a week and a half to think about it before you come out. If they didn't want to spend $8,000, they would have canceled the appointment. That the fact that they have waited a week or a week and a half for your team to come out after looking in the showroom at the $8,000, average installed price or whatever it is, that puts them further down the pipeline. So now when you give them the bid in the home and say, we're ready to do this, they can make a decision. Now, worst case scenario, maybe you got to give them the bid 24 hours later, but they've had that time to process and think about it. I think that that's really, really big. And so, we'll take a deep dive on pricing in a second, because I know this isn't totally answering the question, but to use a Donald Miller analogy, if you don't show pricing in your showroom and you make them wait a week and a half to come out for an estimate, that would be like someone coming in and saying, hey, I've been thinking about doing business with you. How do I give you money? And you say, well, guess what? We buried the cash register out behind the building. Here's a shovel. You can go find it. That's what we do when we don't show pricing. We are putting so many barriers in between us and the customer. They don't trust us. They think we're a used car salesperson. They're nervous. Is the price today the same as tomorrow? How do I actually move ahead on this? So showing pricing is a really big deal.
And that's magnified today, Tim, because of how consumer shopping habits are. I mean, Amazon and Uber and these companies have changed the landscape of what consumers expect. And like right now, we're still riding high on demand, but we're not always going to have that. And it's going to come crucial to us serving our customers on what they need. And they need it to be easy, transparent. And by giving them a price, you really check a major box.
Totally. Now, okay, I think that this is what solidifies it though. So for anybody who's nervous about this and it's like, Tim, Grant, there's no way we can do this. You don't understand how much our products vary. You don't understand my customers. This is the secret sauce. The secret sauce is on your signage. You put average installed price and you give a range of $1,000 or $1,200. So let's just say you've got your good, better, best inserts marked out, right? Well, maybe your good inserts, I'm guessing, are probably all going to be within the same $1,200 range for the average install, right? So look at your last 10 jobs and figure out, maybe it was whatever, $7,800. Perfect. If that's the average, subtract $500 and add $500. Your average job is $7,000 to $8,000. That's great. That's a great way for the customer to self-qualify, to understand, oh, okay, this is what most people spend. But now there's a great call to action to get an in-home visit, to say, hey, this is what most people spend. We'd love to get an in-home visit with you to confirm the numbers on your specific job. It's a really good call to action doing it. It also makes it to where you don't have to update your prices hardly ever, because you can go through 3 price increases easily and not affect that $1,200 range.
Yeah, I love it.
Cool.
And you do site inspections. I mean, a lot of times people will if the price when you get out there is higher, as long as you can explain it and explain, this is why we do site inspections, because we can't button it all up, because like Tim was talking about, our industry is hard. It's difficult to get it perfect, but we are qualified to get it close. And yeah.
And I'll say this. So when it comes to your showroom, and I'll ask you this question, Grant, because again, people are going to say, okay, so I get it. Okay, I'm going to show an average installed range of $6,800 to $8,000 for this wood stove or whatever. Now, Grant, when I get out to that house, there's going to be one, maybe not all of them, there's going to be one that's $11,000. And they're going to tell me, but you said it would be between, whatever it was, $7,800 and $9,000. What do you do in the showroom to guarantee that that's never a problem?
I would say, it's the passing of the baton between the sales team, based on the story and the expectations set up from what the consumer told us through the shopping experience, and why passing it from the showroom to the estimator that does the job walk with expectations is because when those expectations change, when something changes in the process of why we got to that ballpark range, it's easily explainable, and not people don't argue it. They understand it. That's why we come out. That's why we make sure. But we got them really close and they appreciated it. I'm not saying that every once in a while you don't have your sharpen your pencil customer who's just coming at you for all those reasons. You're always going to have that. but it's about setting up expectations in the showroom, passing that baton successfully, and truly setting that estimator up for success by just, setting up expectations.
I'm with you. Yeah. And I just think you train to it, right? So this is why I think pricing has to be shown, but I also believe no one can go out and do an in-home visit without a written bid first. No one
Yeah.
can. Because the written bid is your chance to set expectations. If someone looks at a sign in your showroom and says, "Oh, can you come to my house?" Maybe they were looking at the wrong product. Maybe they missed a zero, and they thought it was, I don't know, $500 instead of 5,000. So even if your company does free in-home visits, which I've done, I believe in that. That's great. Even if you do free in-home visits, no in-home visit is done without a written bid, because the written bid is the time to say, this is what we believe your price range is going to be. And you literally put language on the bid. This is contingent on an in-home visit because the scope of work can change upon visiting the home. We will confirm the final pricing of the bid with you upon completing our appointment. And you just make it a policy. Every estimate, you go through that with your customer. And then when there's a change, people are super reasonable. The reason people get upset and fly off the handle is because we don't document our expectations.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so this is a great question from Jillian. I love this. We just this week took half our showroom down to the studs for a total remodel. It's exciting and overwhelming at the same time. This is our first time doing this. I don't think I've ever second guessed myself as much as I am through the process. Any recommendations for working with a clean slate? Yeah, Jillian, gosh, I know what it's like to second guess yourself on big investments like that. Grant, where would you start there?
Well, I think, we kind of answered a little bit of this earlier. I think you got to go back to what you do best and what your consumers are demanding in your marketplace. And you really have to understand, okay, who are my consumers? And in Spokane, Washington, my primary consumer is open fireplace customer. And I can sell them primarily gas inserts because that's what our market demands, but we also sell wood and pellet inserts. And so by understanding your consumers, you create categories. So, the first category for us and the biggest category is open fireplaces. And our showroom is set up to sell to that customer, because when you're selling a gas insert, if your pellet inserts or your wood inserts are on the other side of the showroom, it's disrupting the sales flow. And that customer has an option, and they might have stacks of trees in the backyard or be on the outskirts and want a more reliable and have that type of backup option. So you want that flow to work correctly. So categories, and then within those categories, based on square footage, decide, do I want 3 models, 5 models, based on how much you sell, and put them in a good, better, best format. And honestly, if I had a box of a showroom, I would start with outdoor in the front if I sold outdoor, simply because there's windows and things out there and it's fun and people like that. But then I would start from like maybe least popular to most popular to the back, and I would have my categories: open fireplace, rip and replace. I think of other ones like new construction, remodel, electric, outdoor. Really think about who your customers are and design your showroom intentionally around who your customers are.
Yeah, that's great. As you were saying that, I was writing down some categories. So, Jillian, the first thing that I would do is to echo Grant. I would organize your new showroom based on customer scenario. So, I believe that the showroom should be laid out in 5 categories. The categories are going to be open fireplaces, freestanding stoves, fireplace replacement fireplaces, remodel slash new construction fireplaces, and outdoor space. If you want to add a 6th category for electric that's separate, that's fine. But the
Moderate.
5 categories is your bread and butter. So I would say you want to have a section of the showroom that is your open fireplace section. Any product that goes in an open fireplace is in that. Gas logs, wood inserts, pellet inserts, gas inserts, anything with an open fireplace, that's the section. Put a big old sign, 5 feet wide, 5 feet high, with a picture of an open
Yeah.
fireplace. Put a big sign that says open fireplaces. Then have another section of your showroom with your freestanding stoves. Big old sign, 5 feet by 5 feet. Freestanding stoves, wood, gas, pellet. Put it all there. Outdoor, like you said, Grant, I love that idea of outdoor being up front. This is the big differentiator, and this is a little bit of a rabbit trail, but I promise it's going to be worth it. When it comes to ZC fireplaces, you're laughing at me because you've seen this before. When it comes to ZC fireplaces, one of the biggest mistakes that we've made as an industry is we think that all ZC fireplaces are ZC fireplaces, and they're not. There are two categories of ZC fireplaces, and those categories are fireplace replacement ZC fireplaces and remodel / new construction. For most retailers, this is most retailers that sell ZC fireplaces are selling them into existing houses. Many of them are replacing these old builder boxes that are, 30 years old. In virtually every market in North America, there are thousands and thousands of these builder grade boxes that are in there. When someone comes in and says, hey, my house was built in 1990 and I had this like nasty brass looking fireplace that was built in with it. We think, oh, ZC fireplace. Okay, cool. They were thinking about modern. We could talk about a 5-foot linear because it's a zero clearance. And that's the wrong move, because that existing house inside that framing cavity, it's only so big. And the second that we open up that frame to go wider, we're dealing with, load-bearing studs, and we're dealing with ripping open an entire wall. And it's a major remodel project that's going to involve a contractor, an engineer, possibly even an architect, and it's going to be $20,000 plus. Very few customers want that. Most customers want just an easy way to replace their fireplace. The mistake that we make when we talk to them about a 5-foot linear is it would be the equivalent when someone comes in and says, hey, I've got a brick fireplace that's 35 inches wide. We would never say, oh my gosh, okay, cool. Well, I'll tell you what, I've got a great fireplace insert that's 36 inches wide. And so if you want to just knock down your entire chimney, just tear the whole thing down, rebuild it all brick by brick, we could make the new chimney 36 and a half inches wide so you could fit this bigger insert in. No way. No one's going to do that because they've only got so much space. So when someone comes in for a fireplace replacement, you want to stick with a model that meets the same framing spec and is both a top and rear vent. If you're top vent only, or if you're one of those weird 45s, does not count. It's not a fireplace replacement. It's got to be top and rear vent.
Yep.
And the framing spec on this, and the beauty is, nearly all builder grade fireplaces for the last 30 years have one thing in common. It's their framing size. That framing size is roughly 42 inches wide, 22 inches deep, and about 40 inches high. The height doesn't matter, because if you need to, you can move that
header up.
That stud up, or that board up, just a header. Thank you. You can move that header up just a little bit. It's not load bearing or anything like that. But the second you widen that frame, even a half inch, you're dealing with the load-bearing header up at the top of the wall, and it's a major, major project. So I would say for your fireplace manufacturers, if you're a company that doesn't do a ton of new construction, I would show less than 3 fireplaces that are remodel / new construction, meaning if it's top vent only, meaning if it's got a 45-degree vent off the back, meaning it's the framing width is any wider than 42 inches. The framing depth is any wider than 22. I'd show less than 3 models, because that's going to complicate the sales process. Instead, look for models that frame at 42 wide, 22 deep, that are top and rear vent. There's a lot of manufacturers that have those, and that's what you want to do, because a customer coming in, they want to replace what's going to work in their space. So I'm going on a major rabbit trail there. But in your showroom, remember, you've got your open fireplace section, you've got your freestanding stove section, then you have your fireplace replacement section. That's what we just talked about. So in that section, you only have models that fit that criteria. So someone comes in and says, hey, my house was built in the 90s. We want to replace that old builder box that's in there. Perfect. We don't go to the ZC section. We go to the fireplace replacement section. There's probably only going to be 1 to 3 models there. That's fine. If a customer
and a lot of
looks
times,
at your, oh yeah.
I was just going to add in, you start there, and if a customer wants to get crazy and wants to design, let them take you there. But the starting point
100%.
is the rip and replace. You can always move down to the new construction remodel section, which has all the options, because they've told you what they want. But a lot of times we think of fireplaces and inserts as totally different. And I love what you say, Tim. You say, why do we look at them any differently? We take this out and we put that in. Open fireplace, we put something in. Rip and replace, we take it out, we put it in. We make it as easy for the consumer as possible. I absolutely love looking at it like that.
Yeah. So our next section of the showroom is the remodel slash new construction section. This is where all the big boys go, right? All the fireplaces that are top vent only, that have a framing width wider than 42, that's for remodel new construction. So again, if your customer's looking at the replacement section and goes, "Oh man, these are kind of small. I don't think I like them." That's fine. Well, yeah, we have a remodel new construction section to go to, just so that you know, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, you'll probably want to get an engineer involved. There's going to be some construction work to really kind of do a remodel on this entire wall. And that will make the scope of the project a little bit more complex and expensive. 9 out of 10 customers say, "Oh, never mind. Let's just stick with this." 1 out of 10, if they want to go to the remodel section, perfect. But that's your
Exactly.
next section. And then finally, you've got outdoor. So Jillian, back to what you do. I'd organize based on sections: open fireplace, freestanding stove, fireplace replacement, new construction slash remodel, and outdoor. And if you want to have a separate electric section, that's great too. I think that doing that is really, really going to help you. And then you can look at your book of business and say, well, you know what? We don't sell that many ZCs, and we really sell a lot of pellet inserts. So now you can start to weigh those spaces accordingly, where maybe your open fireplace section is twice as big as all the other ones. That allows you
Yep.
to kind of get in the driver's seat. So let us know if that helps. And for anybody else who's watching, if there's a follow-up question based on that, or based on the fireplace replacement conversation, let us know. I mean, dude, I believe, like, every time I see a manufacturer come out with the latest and best zero clearance fireplace, I always look at it. And a lot of the time it's top vent only, or the framing is bigger than 42. And I'm like, dude, you've just eliminated yourself from 70% of the possible installations that this product would ever go in. And I think the opportunity is for the manufacturer that intentionally wants to go after all of these existing builder boxes. I think there's so much opportunity and no one is going after it. All right, Jillian. Well, yeah, thank you for that question. I'm glad that the info helped. Um, I think that a lot of this just comes down to intentionality. So, you know, with your showroom, by having a story for every product, it really allows you to train. So, going back, I don't know, 30 minutes ago when I was talking about my past showroom, how we had a good, better, best model, and we had a simple sales message for everyone, right? For our good products, they were cost-effective fireplaces that had a few basic options. For our better fireplaces, it was comfortable heat that warmed you up like a blanket. And for our best options, it was premium look with the most design flexibility. Every product in your showroom needs a simple story. Going back to what I first talked about how, soapstone stoves are like crock pots and steel stoves are like stovetops. That's a picture that people can understand. And we want to be able to tell that story. Grant, for you, I feel like product story is everything. And you've made the choice, I think about in particular with like Blaze King and Harmon, that they share a common story, which is weird because like one's a wood stove and one's a pellet stove. But how have you anchored the same story there?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that because uh, I love talking about comfort versus heat. So in our industry, I think we focused on heat for so long, and heat's great. But one of the number one complaints, other than having to start the pilot of a direct vent fireplace, is that it heats up too fast. And why? Because they don't know they can go down to the unit and turn it down. And it's a lot of times right below the TV, and their couch is right in front of it. So looking at my product line, and after you slowly are putting things together, starting with gas inserts, you realize the advantage to the new IPI technology, which we call pilot on demand, is actually that as it gets close to the temperature, it starts to reduce its flame. That's why ember bed lights are so nice when that flame gets nice and low. Being in the HVAC industry a little bit, you start to realize variable adjustment is the most efficient. If I can adjust to the temperature you exactly need at that time, that's what's most efficient. And so you go over into the Blaze King line, they have a bimetallic damper. What does it do? It regulates the temperature, it keeps it comfortable. I don't know of another stove that does that. And coupled with the catalytic combustor that doesn't rely on fluctuation of flame and all this other stuff, it's actually hot and creating consistent heat that's controllable. You get this nice, even burn and total comfort. People talk about burn times, and I would argue the best part about Blaze King is the control. And then you go on to Harmon, which we've been a quadrifier dealer for 35 years. But quadrifiers, when you set them to a thermostat, they turn off and on to keep the temperature. We reheat the steel. We have a stove that's hooked up to outside air. We turn it off and on, and we reheat the steel, which pellet stoves on thermostats are great, even if it's turning off and on. But as I got through my gas line and my wood line, then what was I doing? I was searching for that pellet stove that created comfort. And I had a sales rep who was trying to sell me Harman for a number of years. I called him and I said, "Does Harman have a modulating auger? Are you telling me this whole time, through this whole time, that they actually have it, and it's a bottom feed system that when it's set to a temperature, it adjusts its feed rate contingent on what that temperature is, and it has a closer turn off and on. Even it idles for a little bit before it turns off, which is all centered around keeping it comfortable for the customer. So our best option in all our categories has a similar story. It makes it easier for our sales staff and customers to understand.
I love that, dude, because you can train to that. Again, and it allows you to flow seamlessly between wood, gas, and pellet. If there's a customer that comes in thinking that they want pellet, but maybe they're a wood customer, they can get that same story about comfort. And again, like, I understand the difficult spot that manufacturers are in because there's a lot of information they have to communicate. But I really believe that the information printed in brochures is just not helpful to most customers. It's helpful for me if I want to become a fireplace engineer and work at Omni Test Labs. It's very helpful to me then. But it's not helpful to me if I'm a consumer trying to figure out how this product can solve my problem. And so our job needs to be building bridges. And I understand, there are many people at manufacturers that do a good job. I'm just saying, generally speaking, there is so much information being shoveled down people's throats, and it's not the information that helps them move the needle on understanding, is this actually going to help me? So yeah, I love that story because like the product story, when there's a consistent categorical hierarchy to the products you sell and a story for everyone, a specific problem that they solve, training becomes simple. You can take somebody off the street and start training them. They don't know everything, but within just a few weeks, they can tell the basic stories about your products and start to move the needle for you.
No question. I really think that a lot of us are information givers. I've seen it within my own sales team. And to prevent that, you have to create a story. Once they create a story, efficiencies are less of a concern to the consumer than we make it. Now, when we're force feeding it, they're going to ask a ton of questions. You know what? Don't worry about obviously you have to have the answer in context to what the product is. Once you tell the story, you have to know your product. And I'm not saying not to, but your customer needs a story to understand exactly what they're looking for and what they need. And building it from the outside in with that story, knowing your customer allows your sales staff to do that just so much more successfully.
Yeah, we got just a couple minutes and we're going to wrap it. I want to tell one story, then we'll get out of here. So just a few days ago, I was in Boise, Idaho, working with a client out there. We were doing some sales training, and I was talking about gas inserts. And again, the same thing applies to wood, same thing applies to pellet. But when someone comes in, in my history, I've sold a lot of gas inserts because that's what our market has. When someone comes in and says, "Hey, I'm looking for a gas insert," we sit down, talk to them about their project, and it looks like a gas insert is going to be a good fit. For the longest time, I would walk over and say, "Oh, well, hey, this is our heat and glow insert, and it does X, Y, and Z. And this is our Travis Industries insert. It does X, Y, and Z. This is our pick your model, right? Enviro insert. It does X, Y, and Z. Here's our Cozy Heat one. It does X, Y, and Z." To the customer, they can't keep track of that. No matter how good I explain it, they can't keep track of those 4 different things, much less separate model numbers and things like that. What changed for me was when I started doing this. When I found out after talking to them that an insert really was going to be the right fit, we'd walk over the inserts and I would say something to the effect of, "Hey, Grant, thanks a ton for answering those questions. That really helps me understand your project. And I think there's a couple fireplaces here that could really help you. Now, we're going to look at a few different things, but before we get started, I just want you to know that no matter which one of these you end up taking home, it's going to do 2 things for you. First off is it's going to make your home a lot more efficient because I know you mentioned that your space is drafty. And the reason is because even when you've got that damper closed inside your fireplace, and notice I'm speaking with my hands, when you got that damper closed, it's not airtight, and it's actually kind of the equivalent of like opening your living room window up. Notice I'm speaking with my hands. Living room window up about an inch or so, and that's just, of course, that's going to make the room cold. So the best thing is that when we put this product in your fireplace, we're actually going to run the vent system up the chimney and then seal it completely. So before you've even turned the fireplace on or lit your first fire in it, your house is already warmer and you're already saving money on energy efficiency. Now, number two is that this fireplace is going to radiate a whole bunch of heat into your space, and you're going to create a comfort zone in the area where your family lives without having to have your furnace system heating up the back bathrooms and bedrooms just to try to get your living room up to temperature. You can create a comfort zone at a fraction of the cost of what it would be to run your furnace, and that heat over time will radiate its way out to the rest of the house. Now, I've told that story a million times, and I tell that story the same way to every customer, no matter what, before we look at a
Because it
product,
solves their
before we
problem.
get to a brand, because yes, an insert solves their problem. And that story is what will make the sale. After that, we go look at a Quadrifier, a Cozy Heat, a Travis Industries, whatever. Dude, that we'll figure that stuff out. That doesn't matter. We need to anchor them that this product will solve your problem. Same thing with the wood stove. Hey, we're going to look at a lot of different wood stoves that are out here, and they do a lot of different things. I just want you to know that no matter which one you get, you're going to find that you probably save 30% of your wood consumption, because these things are clean burning, they're efficient, and you're going to find that you can light a fire and it's going to go for 10, 12 hours. So you're not going to have to wake up at 3 a.m. anymore to take care of that fire. Every single time, every single customer, as long as it's a true story. But that is what makes a sale. The product starts to work itself out. This is thinking outside in. I'm starting with the product story. Then I'm moving into the model and everything else. So hopefully that's helpful for you guys. It's been absolutely amazing to be here. Our next Power Hour is July 7th. And it's going to be at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. if you're in New Brunswick, and 5:30 if you're in Newfoundland/Iceland. And we're going to talk about building an installation rating system, which, Grant, this might be the most powerful thing we've ever talked about.
As we talk to more dealers and understand dealers in which I'm still in the business and everything. Honestly, this building an installation rating system is a game changer. It allows you to train better. It allows you to schedule better. It allows coordinators to understand, are they capable of doing this? Do we need to add people? Do we need to add time? It's a game changer. I can't wait, Tim.
Yeah, it's gonna be so good. And I'll give a little tease. Oh, Peter, he said I thought that Newfoundland was like a suburb of Iceland. I guess not. So the truth is, if you think about this, like what we talked about today with a good, better, best, with product stories, it allows you to train. It really does. It makes it easy for your customers, makes it easy for your team. And the same thing with your installation rating. Imagine if every single job you've got a criteria for, where it's rated on its difficulty level on a scale of 1 to 10. It's rated on its attractiveness of how much do you want to do that job. And what if you've actually rated your installers so you know who can do what job? You decide on Fridays, you're only going to do these kind of jobs. On Mondays, you're going to do these kind. It's powerful. We are wrapped on our time. So thankful to everybody who's watching. We hope it's been a blessing for you. And we will see you,
Thank you guys.
very, very soon on July 7th. So peace. We'll talk soon.
Awesome. See you guys.